we as an industry have a challenge convincing the print service providers and the industry to back the trade shows?
I think this is our absolute responsibility to show the universe of print, different business models, how to properly partner and take the win-wins of every partnership. And this is, I think, a big tendency observed not only on the visitor side, but as well on the supplier side.
It's really a one-roof approach to a print expo or printing expo. Trying to put all technology together and all segments of the market together in one spot.
Drupa was cancelled last week, so I think a lot of vendors, a lot of exhibitors, a lot of media, a lot of people, attendees are all thinking about what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? What are we going to do now?
We will be back tomorrow and show you more great things.
How has the show been for you guys? It's been absolutely fantastic. The foot traffic has been amazing. The people that have come are actual real buyers. So many times you get the tire kickers and this has been qualified people coming through, a great volume of them, and really we're doing fantastic in the booth.
Would you say that your success is a mirror of how the industry is developing right now?
Absolutely.
We needed to be part of the event because it's all about automation from software, printing, and finishing equipment perspective. It is a must-attend event. In the industry, it's the only place where you can see all of this automated work together in the same place.
Well, my friends, we have Thayer Long from APTech in Washington, D.C., and Andreas from Frankfurt, my CEO of INKISH. So great to see you both.
Hey, Morten, how are you?
I am very good, and I'm very pleased to see you again. And I just complimented your glasses before, and then you said it was reading glasses, and then here we are, right?
Yeah, well, they started out as reading glasses, and now they've become more permanent. So,
Thayer Long, you are the president of APTech, and you have, I mean, is it 5 years that you have been with APTech now?
Almost, Morten. Yeah.
Almost, yeah. And I remember that it's been, to be honest, it's been quite of a roller coaster for you, right?
Yeah, there's a lot that's happened in 5 years. Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
And the reason why I say this is just because, I mean, one of the reasons why I in particular invited you to participate in this little panel here is because when you joined NPSC or APTech now back almost 5 years ago, you took over a GraphExpo show that was the kind of Drupas of America kind of thing, right? Smaller, but an annual event. And we're not going to talk so much about that, but just to place you. And then basically that show was, you joined with the Tarsus Group to make the Brand Print America together with Label Expo. And then fucking hell came a virus, right?
Right.
Sorry
right.
My language, but
yeah, no, it's okay. I think that you put it well.
and I was just about to say that when Drupa canceled almost 2 weeks ago, and you read that information, I guess what went through your head?
Well, what went through my head. Well, actually, that in that intro that I just saw, one of my favorite people is Sabine Gelderman. She is just an absolute star. I have gotten to know her well, and she's just a great person and a great advocate for the industry. Drupa was my first industry event.
Wow, that must have been quite of a baptism, right?
Well, it was. I mean, it was. So not only was it my first industry event, it was my first experience at a European trade fair, which is just a dramatically different experience than what we have here in the U.S. Better, well, not, just different, right? But just massive and just so
Takes your breath away when you go to Drupa,
it
right?
really does, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been as you said, it's been a roller coaster for the past 5 years. Certainly, it's been a roller coaster for us as the organization, and quite frankly, I sort of feel like ever since COVID, maybe the rest of the industry is now caught up on the roller coaster that we've been on.
Yeah,
So.
And that was also why I thought it could be interesting to talk to you, because one of the things I can't help think about is that I think especially when the 2020 Drupa was postponed first, I think some of the marketing was like there's a necessity of having the trade shows. There's a need for it. There's a must kind of thing to have. And now we are at the end of 2020, and actually some vendors, they have coped pretty well, reached the budgets, and even been able to push out information about new technologies, regardless of the cancellations, right? So is there a need for these mega events of trade shows, in your opinion?
Well, far be it from me to know what everybody needs. I think, if I were to sort of begin to sort of dimension this, I think first of all, necessity is the mother of invention. So yes, we've been without live events. We've been without many things. Over the past 10 months. But we're human, and so we find ways to adapt and we find ways to cope. Businesses are the same. Businesses, these corporate entities, they find ways to adapt, certainly.
Because you did so too. I mean, you relatively fast adapted into a virtual format, very successful.
I think if you were to take us as sort of a little bit of a microcosm, right? We've been producing a fairly significant event here in the United States for decades, and when I first came on board, I think people were questioning a lot of questions around: do we need to have a big event here in the U.S. every year? Can it be every other year? Are there ways that we could combine our event with other events? And this was largely being driven by manufacturers, who, rightly so, they have they have a big expense that's associated with the event. We don't have to, everyone I think knows this. And so, I think we were already sort of at the leading edge of, this reduction and consolidation of events. Selfishly, look, we tried to fight it, right?
Yeah.
We certainly did. But ultimately, we decided that the best approach was to support and change and adapt, and so we did do that.
But the reason I was mentioning the change of also you going virtual was not so much in relation to the trade show of GraphExpo and print, but more the fact that APTech changed its entire operation from being only a vendors organization to also be a PSP's organization.
Right.
I know that you and your team has been focusing a lot on education and also teamed up with universities in order to give education to the communities in the printing industry. And that was where I thought that, okay, you did in the early time. I had over the Skype interview with your colleague Ken Gardner, and as far as I remember, he said that you were very successful with actually moving some of these learning events online, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that learning and conference type events lends itself very well to a virtual or a remote setting, and I think we learned that early on. I think what we are also now seeing is how the manufacturers have adapted to do product demonstrations in a virtual or a remote setting.
Yeah.
So, and I think that trend will continue.
Yeah.
You know, as you just pointed out, we found the manufacturers found ways to make budgets and just continue to sell equipment without, you know, a large trade show. So I think it's going to be, it's going to be certainly difficult to ever, I think, go back to once was, and I think we're all beyond that. I think we all know it's not going to go back to once was, but I think we're all looking and seeing as terms of when live events do come back, because they should and they will, you know, really what they're going to look like.
So, because that has been the key of the things I've been talking about with people today, is the fact that everything is needs driven. When you do a trade show, it's because you need to present your products and services. But with the everything in print has changed, not just in the 5 years you have been part of the industry, but you know, from the very beginning, changing from technology. I can't help think about that when Google and the internet became mainstream, it changed the paradigm that where print and maybe some kind of monopolized broadcasting was the kind of way to mass communicate. Now mass communication has a way broader definition, because now everybody can broadcast and communicate in broader terms. And I was just thinking that if these changes are just, in a quotation, just iterations of what would have happened anyway, because technology drives us, and the needs from I mean, you know how much both of you, I know that you love to come to Brussels and have a good dinner and go to Label Expo and things like that, and you know how much I have always loved to get to Chicago and be at the GraphExpo and print shows, but we have to justify the time and the money spent on going, and if you can get the same without, you need to find other ways to justify it, right?
Right, you do. You know, I'd like to, you know, you mentioned technology, and I think that's going to play an ever increasing role. I mean, it certainly is playing more of an increasing role for, you know, how we just interact as humans, right? And so I think that what won't change though, so I think that there's going to be a lot that we can accomplish through technology, Morten. I think you know, you and I can have this conversation, and yes, you're not here, but I can see your face, I can see your expressions, and it's
for you.
It's yeah, right. But so it's not the same, but technology has enabled this conversation to occur.
Yeah,
technology has enabled you know, manufacturers to do product demonstrations remotely. Has enabled people to celebrate holidays, like I'm sure we will, celebrating holidays with our families, sometimes over, you know, these types of things. It's been a great enabler, and I think that's only going to continue. I think where if I were to think about what we can do and what a traditional trade show organizer could do in the future, is provide a filter to all of this information that you just talked about, right? So now anyone with a with a phone, right, with a computer, can talk about, you know, information, can present news, right? Where's the filter there? How do I know as a consumer, you know, if that you know, if that's a credible, you know, there's a certain amount of credibility now that you've established to the marketplace that you are a manufacturer of good reputation and stand by your product.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that, but that makes totally sense, because I mean, basically, if you are at a trade show, you have to a certain extent, you have crossed the bar, right?
Well, right, and that's what we always talk about print in general, right? It's that physical, it's that tangible manifestation of a intangible concept, like I'm a good company to do business with. So I really think that there's still going to be that need, and I think that's where, you know, that's maybe where I might start if I were to sort of recreate, you know, myself, if we were in the business of being a trade show organizer. It's being that filter, being that intermediary between the company and the consumer, to provide a credible and a trustworthy platform for engagement. Otherwise, you know, it could be the, what we like to say in the US, the wild, wild west. It could be anyone's game, and you don't know if that company that you're interacting with remotely is really a company that's going to be in business in a year or two, or is really going to be, able to support the product that you're buying. So I think it's really just it's the platform itself, which is so important, and whether or not it's remote or whether or not it's live, you still need to have that platform to create that bond.
One of the things.
Could I add something?
Yeah, of course, Andreas.
I love to go to events in the US since more than 30 years, and it started with joining SeaWorld conferences, Macworld events, and my favorite was always GraphExpo because it was a little bit more like a family event, and we had, and my observation is we had always in a long-term perspective a discussion about this event before we went there. So all my American friends, they said, "Hey, do you come this autumn to GraphExpo in Chicago or to a conference in?" And so we discussed about this on this human to human element.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm missing with all those virtual shows, because we measure how is the quality of the Wi-Fi and how is the presentation, the visualization of the presentation, but this momentum that the event is part of our private and business conversation all the time. This is what I'm missing, and I think it's very important to create a real engagement. Do you share my opinion, and what is your approach on that?
So yeah, so that's, for me, it's complicated. I do share your approach. I do share the sentiment that I miss, as I said, I miss seeing the both of you in person. This would be, I think, a very much more enjoyable conversation that we have in person. But this is an expression that I've said often, and I've heard others say it too. When a crisis like what we're going through now tends to accelerate trends that had already existed, it doesn't necessarily create new trends. Okay, and I think that you can point to many different examples. The increase of e-commerce. For instance, but one trend that I think is not so great has been we I think have been isolating ourselves as a society well before COVID hit. Yeah. We've been isolating ourselves behind social media handles, behind Facebook posts, behind Twitter feeds. That's this form of isolation because we're not having a real conversation. I'm having a conversation with you through this device here. And I think that's a negative trend that we're seeing. So I think we are missing that live interaction. It's a different conversation. It's a different discourse. It's a different feeling. It's a different sense of anticipation. But I'm not quite sure the generation behind me or us feels that way. And so I'm not sure, what that looks like in 5 or 10 years. Now, I would certainly offer to you to say that some of the first events that do come back are going to be small, are going to be intimate, are not going to be large trade shows, but are going to be more conferences where we can be together. But I'm really not sure, if others necessarily behind us will feel the same way. But if they do, I would say, in order for us to really get out from behind our shell, which is what technology has in some respects created for us, the experience has really got to be good, right?
You remember when I was once wrote you a suggestion to improvements of GraphExpo. Long time ago. I said to you the food experience, the lounge areas, the communication areas, and that is basically now you have taken up on my advice. It sounds like, right?
Well, I think, yeah, and I think I was talking to someone the other day. We had a great conversation, and it was a printer, and I offered this suggestion. The B2B experience, I think, is going to become a lot closer to the B2C experience, right? We are all consumers. So I think about that, and so I think to myself, well, as a consumer, am I going to want to get on a plane to go do a meeting, a business meeting that I could do remotely? No, I'm not going to want to do that. But am I going to get on a plane for maybe it's a business reason, but more importantly, it's going to be more of a personal enrichment experience? Yeah, I think I might.
Yeah.
So, this is, I know this is all very broad and very sort of
no,
but I think it's going to ultimately drive what.
Thayer, the interesting thing about what you're saying, I mean, there's a lot of interesting insights in that, but one of the interesting things is that can't help think about that in relation to your recent announcement from last week, where you are joining forces with Eric Hawkinson and his company, right?
Yeah, the Innovators Group. Yeah,
because they have been. I mean, I still think that D-Scoop, which they were. Him and his partner was part of in the beginning, is one of the most recognized user kind of events. And I think that is basically what you're saying, that the takeaways from these kind of events is that you learn something, you have the social thing, you have the knowledge thing. I mean, you have something on D-Scoop. I've never been at D-Scoop, but I think that what I hear from D-Scoop is basically that you get things that you would not be able to get on a trade show, and that you would not be able to get on a virtual event anyway, right? So is that part of your story, is also that you see yourself and the way APTech can be part of the American and maybe global communities developing into these kind of directions? Or
yeah, I think that's a great point, Morten. And I'm going to sort of talk and kind of consider what you're saying at the same time, so I may stumble here.
Do you need a break?
No, I'm good. I'm good. To use that D-Scoop example, and we've certainly seen it replicate in a lot of different industries. You're creating a community of users, but you're creating a community, and to create a community, you have to have a certain like-mindedness amongst your community members, right? It's your tribe, if you will. And so, how can you, really, it's how do you now create community in a more remote environment, or sort of a hybrid environment? I still think, though, that that kind of remains to be seen, kind of how that sort of dimensions and scopes itself out over time. What's the right mixture between live and hybrid? My colleague of mine, Don Carley, has used the word phygital, right? It's sort of that the blending between physical and a digital environment. I think that the formula in that recipe will continue to be, evolve, and everyone will have their own recipe, I think. But I think one of the things that we've experienced over the past several months is that to create community, it has to be done at a somewhat of a granular level. It can't be a sort of a very broad or all things, all people.
So you target people more specifically to the needs they have, right?
So yeah, and so some of the most successful virtual events that we did this year were ones that were very, very, very specific. Very, very laser focused. And that's going to be our strategy as we move into next year. We've got some events planned that are very focused and specific, because people. I think that's just that's going to enhance the interaction. It just people aren't going to want to sit in front of their computer screen for 5 or 6 hours hoping they're going to get a needle in a haystack. So they want to know exactly, what am I getting? Now, again, I think
how short do you think?
Oh, geez, no longer than 3-4 hours max. I think for an event. Now, but then it sort of has a life that it can sort of will obviously be able to be archived and accessed after the fact.
Of course, sure.
But now I've also thought, as I'm sort of thinking about this, though, we also did hear that, pre-COVID, right? People would go to a show to see one or two things and then they leave, right? Yeah. That's kind of how they were planning their schedule.
Yeah. Very selective, yeah.
Very selective, right? I mean, we've heard that. Now, the benefit of a live event, though, is that you can sort of enter a trade fair hall and something can catch your eye, and then you can go and you can kind of explore and discover on your own, right? Yeah. That's something that I think we are going to miss. Back to the point that was made earlier. I don't see right now how you replicate that remotely.
No. I can tell you that the reason why we have decided to be so focused on doing these kind of events live is not because the technical quality could be improved by having it recorded. I also think that to some extent people can be even more prepared because you can edit stuff. But the density of having 3, 4, 5 sessions on the same kind of theme within a short time, I think it makes it very vital and very alive. And then you can edit it afterwards into something more consumable formats. Because if you have something that is pre-recorded, why should you then attend at a certain time, right? I mean,
listen, we've done both. We've done some pre-recorded. We've done some live. There could be the people that I work with that are listening that are gonna, they're like, oh, what's he gonna say next? Pre-recorded works. Doing a pre-recorded session is 3 times the work than doing a live session.
Yep.
My personal preference, my opinion, is that you lose authenticity when it's a pre-recorded session. And I think that we've got to make, and I know our successful virtual events have come across as just being very authentic.
Yeah.
And right, I mean, so.
But that is why we try to do this format, and I know that people can say that okay, but you don't have many attendees in a live session. I say I don't care so much about it, because that is authenticity that you talk about that you can't get if you're not in a conversation. I know that I don't speak perfect English. I know that I have my express myself in not maybe correct terms. But I know that when we talk, you will try to understand what I'm talking about, and you would ask me if you don't understand my words correctly, right? And that is also
vice versa, yeah.
And vice versa, yeah. And that is, the part of the globalization is maybe also that this enables us to have a way bigger community than just having Americans or Germans or Danes, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's so like it is. It's much more inclusive, 100%, right? We're doing remote meetings like this. You can bridge time zones, you can bridge countries, cultures. It's a lot easier to access information this way versus buying a plane ticket and doing all that, right? So
yes.
So it is much more inclusive, and that's been a huge advantage. We've seen with our virtual event registrations, we've had people attending from India and from Indonesia and, from Europe and from South America. And, we would never have been able to reach those individuals in the way that we're reaching them now. If it hadn't been, for this unfortunate crisis that we're undergoing. So.
And what is it you want to obtain? Because now we have spoken about the formats and how things are. But what is APTech today? Just to bring on that on a short notice. I mean, because I think I know what it's about, but maybe some viewers are not 100% aligned with what you do.
Well, so we've got several, mainly a few things that we're really trying to focus on.
Several, but mainly a few things.
Yeah, all right. I'll do. One is to really bring that meaningful engagement between, the manufacturers and their partners, the PSPs. I think having the mixture of those, both printers and manufacturers as part of our community has been really amazing. They're really coming together as equals, not as not necessarily as sort of a more of a transactional type of a relationship, but what can we do together to create a future for the industry.
So that is what APT. I mean, you try to enable that interaction between the vendors and the PSPs to have a more common platform of communicating and learning. Or
we do. Well, it's also what kind of content and what kind of programs can we be putting out to help enable that and engender that community development and growth. We've been an industry that's been so focused on the technological developments that our manufacturers have been amazing at developing. We've sometimes lost sight of the fact that, how do we enable ideas? Because it's really ideas that are going to drive our industry forward. And it's
the innovation and the disruption, as we have been talking about, I think when we met in Brussels, or also talking about that, are we trying to go back to the just being a commercial relationship, or is it also a relationship that develops in terms of ideologies, in terms of quality in a broad term, and also in the sense that we talk about how to innovate the industry to grow instead of being focusing on how to downsize it, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. There is a future. I mean, I talk to printers regularly that are creating new print. Okay, that's business and jobs that didn't exist before. We need more of that. We need less of a printer going and just competing on his rivals' accounts. That's not growth.
No. But when you say, for example, that you meet printers that have done innovative new products, applications, kind of things, do you think that the printers that you have visited are good enough of promoting their activities so more people than just the neighborhood knows about it? Because I think that when I maybe we have been talking about this, but sometimes people claim here in Denmark, for example, that the biggest online printer is only successful because they are cheap. And my claim is that they are maybe cheaper than most, but I think that the main reason why they're successful is basically because they do something. They market their services. They do something.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking that when you visit printers that do something that extraordinary or new types of products, do they have the abilities to get that message across?
Are printers good marketers? Is the question. And
you could put it short. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I think sometimes printers get a little bit of a bad rap. I think that they you can't paint them all with the same brush, but
no, of course.
But I think what's more what I'm looking at more is how many of those companies are out there that are are progressive, have a mindset where they're not averse to taking some risk, to trying some new things, right? It's one thing to have a dream. We all have dreams, right? Mm-hmm. Very few of us really try to fulfill our dreams. That's maybe that's human nature, but there are printers out there that they have ideas and they're brave enough and they're bold enough to take a risk and share those ideas. I'm seeing more and more of them, and I think as we've kind of gone through several tranches here of industry evolution, I think that group of entrepreneurs will begin to increase, and the printers who are thinking of themselves purely as manufacturers, purely as their growth opportunity is how can I reduce my cost. I think you'll gradually see that won't go away, but that'll just be a different kind of market. And where we're really focused in is on that other group, the ones that are saying, I've got some really great ideas to help my customers succeed. And I'm willing to take the chance and grow with them.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I wrote an article a year ago, I think, that I call that printing companies becomes factories. Yeah. And the added value is created elsewhere.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It has to. I talked to a printer last week who said their print volume for one customer went down, but the value of that print job or per piece went up, right? So, and you've heard me say this before, Morten, it's not, we're an industry that still tracks itself based on volume. How many shipments, how many pages did we print, not the value of the printed page.
Yeah.
So, I think that's but that's what happens in an industry that's been commoditized, which we all
definitely.
right?
And I think that what you say is the same thing as we have also been trying to promote on INKISH, is basically that if you want to be a commodity printer, you need the volume. If you want to make money, you need to specialize and find the niches and find the products and services that really can accommodate a higher price tag. Otherwise, it's impossible for some of the printing companies to just carry on doing what they have done always, right?
Right.
Which is a shame because.
But I think also the group you mentioned, they have, who are the early adopters and the innovators, they have a totally different relationship to a good conversation. They want to interact. And this is the difference to all those commodity guys that do not want to talk about what they do. Yeah, because there is no story. And I think we have more and more platforms, very specific platforms dedicated to this need of interact with other who want to take the risk, who want to innovate, who want to go new ways, who want to share their ideas. I think that will be good for us. Do you agree?
I totally agree. And I talked to another CEO a week and a half ago. He's on our board, and I was talking to him about what were, some plans for 2021. And he said, Thayer, what I really am hungry for right now is I want to know what other CEOs are going through right now. He said, we've all had our head down trying to drive our business, focus on our business, and I want to know what others are doing. And I think I've always tended to find to use that label, the progressives, the forward-thinking entrepreneurs are always the ones who are most willing to share, right? Because they have that learning mentality, right? What's made them successful is that they're always learning and they're always networking and they're willing to share and they're open about what they're doing. And they also have sort of that pay it forward type of mentality, right? Doesn't that sound like a great group of people? I want to surround myself with people like that, right? For
sure.
Because sure, I may end up competing with them at some point, but together we're making the industry better. And I've always rather compete with somebody that knows what they're doing versus with somebody that does not know what they're doing. Because, right? You start competing with someone that doesn't know what they're doing.
That becomes dangerous.
They're going to ruin the market for everybody.
Yeah, the Danish Federation of Printers, GraphExpo, they had a conference last year about workflow automation, and we actually invited a young American, Diego Diaz, who used to work in the Smart Factory in the Smart Press in somewhere. I can't remember now where it is. Right. And when we interviewed him afterwards, he said, I really want all these printers to be so automated that they will keep me on the toe so I can learn how to become even better than them. And at current time, I am way ahead of them. And in the future, I will continue to be so because every time they do something, I will do it better. And just the mentality of having that, a forward-moving thing instead of just saying that, okay, shit happens, I wait here. Is, and that of course relates to saying that if you are in a group of people where you trust each other and you can learn from each other, it should also inspire each other to do more, right? And then become more competitive, become more innovative, becoming more people-centric, and all the things that I think matters in the future. So really cool.
And so that's a big part of what APTech is doing, Morten. To kind of go back to your question, we've got a magazine or a content platform called Leading Print. It really focuses on this type of content, these stories. It's not necessarily I just bought the new and latest and greatest press, and this is how I've made money. It's more about what these business leaders are thinking, how they're approaching the future. There's a lot of uncertainty. I think it's great human interest. I think people want to understand, right? They want to be able to relate to somebody like them. So that's a big push of what we're doing. We're not ignoring either specific product applications. So we've got a few events that we're rolling out next year that are very specific, very timely. Variable data printing and mailing, we think there's a huge. I don't know what it's like, what you're hearing, but we're here in the U.S. We're seeing a big I think renaissance a bit, if you will, of some of that personalized marketing collateral. And that's a lot of that's being driven by some changes that we're going to anticipating on the tech side.
Interesting.
We're going to focus on developing content-rich experiences for attendees. That also allows manufacturers to get in front of their audience, right? They can talk about how their technology speaks to these different applications. So we've got 2 events that we're planning virtually for next year.
I would like to return a little bit to the topic of this conversation. We are on the last minutes here.
Yeah.
We have. I mean, I can't help think about that sometimes with the roller coaster tour that you have been on and APTech have been on. We just mentioned in the beginning. Do you feel a little bit fortunate now that you have been through it instead of being in a situation right now where you might have to go all over again?
Well, I think if I can be direct, I think your question was, are you sort of glad that we had scaled back from being in the trade show business? I think we were a bit better positioned. All right, we'd already begun the journey of life after being a large trade show organizer. So I think we had started. But I do feel for events, particularly like Drupa, I intrinsically just believe that there's a need for an event like Drupa. Maybe not every year, but certainly periodically, to bring the industry back together in one place, right? I mean, I think that part of community is also sort of locale, right? Is being sort of a togetherness, which we still haven't been able to replicate here remotely. So, specifically for APTech, yes, I think for us, it's we're in a better position relative to some. But if you were to ask me what I would wish for, or what I hope for, and what I would certainly support, I certainly believe that an industry event to bringing people together has got to.
Thayer, I totally agree with you, and that was not the intention of my question. My question was more like that. If you at that time where you were like on the top of the exhibition mountain, right? Yeah. Sometimes it is really nice to be in that position.
Yeah.
And then when competition and maybe also changes in the market is forcing whatever forces you to do the changes you do. Sometimes, it must be some retrospect nice to not have to go through that again. Not because it dislike to any trade shows or anyone or any organization in particular, but I sometimes I have felt sorry for you because I have thought that it must have been an extremely hard, also personal position for you during the years. You have kind of stuck to an organization that have been, resized, repurposed, everything basically. So I think sometimes you may have had a hard time.
Well, listen, look, that's business, Morten.
Yeah,
I mean, look, nothing lasts forever.
That's true.
Nothing lasts forever. That's business. It's a great industry. It's the membership of APTech, the community we serve, is just awesome. The people we get to interact with, like you two, is just terrific. So hey, that's business.
That's business.
You got to evolve. You got to evolve.
That's great. Well, let that be the last words. Thank you, Thayer Long, APTech, President of the United States of America. No, sorry for APTech.
No comment on that. I mean,
it's just because you are in the Washington D.C., so I just forgot. Sorry. No, that was just a joke. For people that knows me, I have really bad humor, so I apologize for that. Thayer, it was a pleasure to see you. I hope that we can soon catch up again. I think maybe after Christmas I will give you a call and see how life is in America at that time, if that's okay with you.
That would be wonderful. And thank you very much for inviting me.
Always.
Have
a great.
Stay
See
safe
you.
and healthy.
Yeah. Bye.
Merry Christmas,
Bye-bye.
Happy Holidays, Happy New Year.
Yeah, and you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Do we as an industry have a challenge convincing the print service providers and the industry to back to the trade shows?
I think this is our absolute responsibility to show the universe of print, different business models, how to probably partner and take the win-wins of every partnership. And this is, I think, a big tendency observed not only on the visitor side, but as well on the supplier side.
It's really a one-roof approach to a print expo or printing expo. Trying to put all technology together and all segments of the market together in one spot.
Drupa was cancelled last week, so I think a lot of vendors, a lot of exhibitors, a lot of media, a lot of people, attendees are all thinking about what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? What are we going to do now?
We will be back tomorrow and show you more great things.
How has the show been for you guys? It's been absolutely fantastic. The foot traffic has been amazing. The people that have come are actual real buyers. So many times you get the tire kickers and this has been qualified people coming through, a great volume of them, and really we're doing fantastic in the booth.
Would you say that your success is